Part 33. The Liu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 321. Chapter 321. Guess who I am? She should find someone to accompany her, but the best candidate now should be Sujiao. But Luz's who was outside and it was not good to call her here, so she had to wander around by herself. Zhang Wanan was strolling around and suddenly his eyes lit up when he saw the counter in the corner. She smiled and ran over and asked, "Sister, can this be engraved?" The clerk raised his head and looked at Zhang Wanan with a smile and said, "Yes, we can carve it for you after you choose it." "Is it fast?" Zhang Wanan looked at the various silver jewelry in the glass window. "It's pretty fast. It's lunchtime and there aren't many people queuing up." Zhang Wanan nodded, "Then let me choose." She decided to buy a silver necklace for Luz's who. An engraved necklace would definitely be better than the watch given by Avril Lavigne. Luz's who likes simple things, so Zhang Wanan gave him a simple necklace. She stood in front of the counter and looked at it for a long time with her chin in her hands. Finally, her finger pointed at a necklace with a round hollow pendant like a ring. The clerk took it out and showed it to her, and Zhang Wanan nodded with satisfaction. "What words do you want to engrave?" the clerk asked. Zhang Wanan held her chin and thought for a few seconds. "Can you get a piece of paper? I want to write something." The clerk nodded and brought a piece of paper for her. Zhang Wanan took it and wrote solemnly. Then she straightened up and handed it to the clerk. "I've written it." The clerk took it over and looked at it again with a smile and said, "Okay, you can sit here for a while or browse for a while. It will be fine in a while." Zhang Wanan nodded and sat aside, waiting quietly. She thought for a while and stood up and ran out. From inside, she saw Luz's who sitting outside, a bit like an old man. It seems that a person is too lonely. She walked out quietly, slowly slipped behind Luz's who, and then covered Luz's who's eyes with her two small hands. "Guess who I am?" she asked in a very thin voice, changing her voice and pinching her throat. The corners of Luz's who's mouth raised slightly. He knew who it was, but he suddenly wanted to tease her. "I guess you are the girl who sent me a love letter a few days ago." "Her voice sounds like her," he said calmly. Zhang Wanan felt her heart tighten. He sold himself, and he never even mentioned it. She suddenly wanted to gouge out Luz's who's eyes with both hands. "Am I right?" Luz's who asked again without hearing Zhang Wanan's words. "No, guess again." Zhang Wanan held back her anger and asked, holding her throat. "That's the person who gave me water a few days ago," Luz's who said with a raised lip. "Guess again," Zhang Wanan said again. Luz's who could faintly tell that Zhang Wanan was clenching his teeth, probably out of hatred. "That's the person who gave me a bracelet a few days ago. I feel like you have one on your wrist too," Luz's who said. Zhang Wanan looked down at his wrist and saw that he was indeed wearing one. He then looked at Luz's who and saw that he was also wearing one. It was a couple's bracelet they bought a long time ago. So he didn't wear the wristband the girl gave him, but he might have hidden it secretly. Zhang Wanan gritted his teeth and told himself to endure it. "Then why didn't you wear the bracelet I gave you?" "I hid secretly in the hole in the table. I can't let that annoying guy see me," Luz's who finished while holding back his laughter. Annoying spirit. Zhang Wanan felt as if his head was going to explode with a bang. He actually called her a nuisance. Zhang Wanan couldn't bear it any longer. She pressed her hands on Luz's who's eyes hard. If she hadn't been controlling and suppressing him, Luz's whose eyes would have been blinded at this moment. "It's going to become two holes." Luz's who felt that she was exerting force and hurriedly pried off her hand. Zhang Wanan avoided his hand, took it away and turned around to leave. "What other necklaces are you making? Everyone already has bracelets, bah." Luz's who opened his blurry eyes and found that Zhang Wanan's eyes were a few meters away from his and had walked away. End of this chapter. The Liu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 322. Chapter 322 How can you forgive me? He felt it was funny, but now was not the time to laugh, because Jongwanan was made angry by him. Jongwanan should have played with him. He raised his feet and took long strides to catch up with her and grab her hand from behind while Jongwanan wasn't paying attention. "Why did you leave?" he asked, even though he knew better. Jongwanan turned around and looked at him with red eyes and said, "You'd better not touch me and let me go." She shook Luzeshu's hand. Luzeshu pulled her tightly and refused to let go, looking at her funny. "Are you jealous? Are you still laughing?" Jongwanan glared at him. Luzeshu stopped laughing. He held back and asked again, "Are you jealous?" Jongwanan twisted his head and looked away without saying anything. Luzeshu turned to face her in the direction she was looking, but as soon as he passed by Jongwanan, he averted his face. "Don't follow me around," Jongwanan said coldly. This time she was really angry. Luzeshu followed her around without listening. Jongwanan became more and more angry, but she couldn't shake his hand away. Jongwanan was so angry that she almost jumped up. "Are you shameless?" Jongwanan looked at Luzeshu coldly and asked. Luzeshu had never seen Jongwanan like this before. He felt that he had dug a hole to bury himself. He had arranged everything clearly. "I was teasing you. I knew it was you. Those nonsense words were all made by me," Luzeshu explained eagerly. But who knew that Jongwanan just snorted coldly, and her voice came slowly, saying, "That's what scumbag men say, no man is good." "I really lied to you," Luzeshu explained weakly. "But I don't want to play with you anymore. Bridge to bridge, road to bridge, road to bridge. Let's go back to our homes and find our mothers in a while," Jongwanan said ruthlessly. "My mother is your mother is my mother, we both have the same mother, I will go wherever you go." Jongwanan said. "Poof, you are so thick-skinned." "It's okay," Luzeshu said. Jongwanan was really going crazy. She looked at Luzeshu with wide eyes. "You think I'm praising you, right? You're very glorious, right?" Luzeshu shook his head hurriedly, shaking his head crazily like a rattle. "I'm really lying to you. I know that soft little hand is yours, because no one will be that boring, so." Luzeshu was interrupted before he finished speaking, and Jongwanan sneered, "You think I'm boring, right? Okay, look at who's not boring in the mall. Who can you go to? Why are you wasting your time here with me? The hole is dug deeper and deeper." "I'm not." "You're not AP*SS, Jongwanan interrupted him again and stepped on Luzeshu's foot hard. Jongwanan used a lot of force. Luzeshu couldn't help but relax the strength on his hand despite the pain. The moment he frowned, Jongwanan shook him off and left, not feeling sorry for him at all. Luzeshu frowned and looked over. He really knew his mistake. He shouldn't be so mean. Ignoring the pain in his feet, he ran a few steps to catch up with Jongwanan, took her arm and walked into the safe passage. There was a muffled dong sound and Jongwanan's back came into close contact with the wall. She frowned and looked at Luzeshu. Yes, she was brave. "Don't touch me, nothing will happen to me, otherwise I will go back and file a complaint," Jongwanan said as a warning. But Luzeshu didn't care at all and even pretended not to hear. He blocked Jongwanan's path with one arm on the wall. "Don't be angry, okay," there was a little pleading in his tone. Jongwanan turned her head and ignored him. "I was wrong," Luzeshu said again. Jongwanan's heart moved when she heard him whisper "I was wrong." She closed her eyes but remained silent. "How can you forgive me? I will never make such a joke again. I swear, don't be unhappy, okay," Luzeshu said again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 323. Chapter 323 Like the village beauty at the end of the village. Jongwanan didn't look at him. She twisted her neck and finally spoke, but she asked, "Where's the love letter? Where's the bracelet? Hidden in the drawer? Where's the water? Did you drink it? Where's the annoying guy? How do you stand up to the annoying guy? Are we together? Aren't you bored?" Jongwanan asked a series of questions. Loses who felt a headache. It was probably like digging a hole to bury himself. "You're just kidding, I made it up, how can anyone give me something?" Loses who said. Jongwanan snorted, "I think this is all adapted from your personal experience, right?" Loses who opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Jongwanan's little hand stretched out to cover his mouth. "Don't say it, let me speak," Jongwanan said calmly. If Jongwanan asked him to speak, he would really stop talking. He looked at Jongwanan with a pair of dark eyes and waited for her to speak. "I guess what you said today is true, Loses who, you are so popular. I have to drive away all my love rivals by your side. How tired I am. I am already very tired, but you still want to keep me away. I know a lot of things that make me nervous, but what do you think?" Jongwanan's soft voice penetrated into Loses who's ears, and he felt uncomfortable in his heart. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to tease you, I didn't think too much about it," Loses who said, like a child who made a mistake. "Can you think more about it next time?" Jongwanan asked. Loses who pursed his lips and nodded. "You actually don't have to put much pressure on me. I've pushed everyone far away, and you're the only one around," Loses who comforted him again. Jongwanan nodded and was not very excited. Loses who knew that she might be losing her temper, so he became bolder and put his arms around her. This time Jongwanan did not break away and let him hold her. Jongwanan lay on Loses who's shoulder and exhaled a long breath, feeling a little tired. "I have to go back to the gift shop." "Let's go back." Jongwanan lay on his shoulder and whispered. Loses who nodded and let go of her, holding her hand tightly and walking out. Jongwanan lowered her head to look at the hands of the two of them clasping together and felt funny. She said, "I won't run away again." Loses who was stunned for a moment and then nodded, but his hand never let go. Jongwanan stopped him again at the entrance of the gift shop. "You can't come in yet." "Why?" "Your gift is not ready yet, you will know when you go in." "Didn't you already do it well when you came out?" "No, I only bought this," Jongwanan said, and put the colorful hair tie that she originally planned to wear on Loses who's head into his hand. She originally wanted to wear this headband on Loses who's hair, but now she is no longer interested. Loses who looked down and sat aside obediently. "Go, I'll wait for you." So Jongwanan turned around and walked in. When Jongwanan entered, the necklace had already been engraved and placed on the counter. There was also a beautiful gift box next to it, waiting for her to accept it. She walked over, picked it up, looked at it again and again, and nodded with satisfaction. After pretending to pay, she carried it and walked out. Loses who heard the footsteps and turned to look at her. When he saw it was Jongwanan, he stood up and neatly put the colorful hair tie on his head. "Does it look good?" he asked Jongwanan. He was trying to make her happy, but he didn't know that Jongwanan's anger left just as quickly as it came in. Jongwanan looked at his silly look and sneered and said, "It looks good, like a village beauty. When you wear it, you will become a complete village beauty." Loses who was speechless for a moment and said, "Are you praising me? Or are you praising me?" "Praise you." Jongwanan tilted her head and looked at him again before leaving. Loses who took off his hair tie and stuffed it into his bag. He hurriedly followed her, took her soft little hand and asked, "Why don't you show me the gift?" End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 324. Chapter 324, Life will be shortened. Loses who took off his hair tie and stuffed it into his bag. He hurriedly followed her, took her soft little hand and asked, "Why don't you show me the gift?" Jongwanan lowered his head and glanced at the delicate little bag in his hand and said with a smile, "It's not yet time." She can remember Luza's birthday this time, clearly. She will never forget Luza's birthday just because she only remembers the new year. "You can give me a look and send it to me on that day," Luza's continued to say without giving up. He was curious about what was inside. "It's not good, it will shorten your life," Jongwanan said seriously. He didn't know where he heard it from, he was stupid. "Avril Lavigne gave it to me a long time ago. I have already lost my life and I don't care anymore," Luza's said. "No, if I give it to you, you will have to give it back more. You are already older than me, and I don't want you to die earlier than me after your life is shortened," Jongwanan did not forget to add. Luza's was stabbed one after another, and he suddenly felt ashamed. He should have found a crack in the ground and crawled in. "I won't read it anymore, I'll wait until my birthday," Luza's no longer forced her. Jongwanan smiled with satisfaction, thinking that this was the right thing. The two of them walked out of the mall, and a cool breeze blew in as soon as the door opened. Jongwanan looked at the clothes she was wearing, and then at Luza's clothes. They were good, just right, neither cold nor hot. The key was to wear couple clothes. "We already have couple outfits and couple bracelets, but we will add more in the future. Don't rush, it still takes a long time." Jongwanan was a little tired and had no interest in shopping anymore, so the two of them stood on the roadside and took a taxi to go home. "Do you want to have a big birthday party?" Jongwanan asked Luza's in the car. Luza's immediately shook his head and said, "It's not worth it." "Why?" Jongwanan was puzzled. In her impression, Luza's birthdays were always simple. Only his family helped him celebrate. Sometimes Avril and Gujinchu would come over. "Waste money. I think it's better to spend money where necessary," Luza's said seriously. "What about?" Jongwanan asked. "Wedding. Our wedding," Luza's added. "I know," Jongwanan replied calmly on the surface, but the moment she turned to look out the window, she felt happy. They all look forward to the grand ceremony in the future. "Hope everything goes well." After returning home, Jongwanan collapsed on the sofa tiredly. Luza's was also tired, but he was unwilling to let Jongwanan sit there with a dry mouth. He walked in, put down his things, poured water for Jongwanan and put it in her palm. "The temperature is just right, drink it." Jongwanan nodded and drank it all in one gulp. When Jongwanan raised his head to drink water, Luza's was attracted by a delicate little bag on one side. He looked at it with fascination, as if he could see through what was in the bag. He was still watching after Jongwanan finished drinking. Jongwanan also read it. "Want to know what's inside?" Jongwanan asked. Luza's nodded immediately. "I've already promised you a birthday, please bear with me." Jongwanan frowned slightly, and then said, "You're not good." "It's Xia's birthday." Xiaolan had just come down from cleaning upstairs. Luza's looked up and nodded. Then you work hard." Luza's interrupted what Xiaolan was about to say. To be honest, Luza's has always been brooding about what happened last time. If they hadn't been talking nonsense, Jongwanan probably wouldn't have been sad for so long. "I don't know why Lin 11 kept them." As soon as Luza's lay down on the sofa and adjusted himself into a suitable position for Jongwanan, the doorbell rang quickly outside. Luza's looked at the time and saw that it was already past 4 in the afternoon. Who else would be coming at this time? End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 325. Chapter 325. Give me a place to live. The voice didn't sound like that of Lu Lin or Lin 11. It should be more urgent. After all, ringing the doorbell was like urging someone to wake up. Aunt Lu shouted when she heard the bell and ran out to open the door. Xiaolan followed her and stuck her head out before going back to work. After a while, Aunt Lu brought the guy who rang the doorbell in. Luz's who frowned and looked over and found that it was Gu Jinchu, but his face didn't look very good. "What are you doing?" "It's like urging someone to do something," Luz's who asked. Gu Jinchu said nothing and sat on the sofa in a muffled voice. Zhang Wanan got up from Luz's who's lap, looked at Gu Jinchu, and asked, "What's wrong, brother Jinchu?" They all saw that Gu Jinchu was in a bad mood. "There is no place left, please take me in," he said. Luz's who and Zhang Wanan looked at each other. "Are you making your uncle and aunt angry again?" Luz's who asked. Gu Jinchu nodded and said nothing. "What did you do again? Why do you make your uncle and aunt angry every day?" Luz's who asked. "How did I know? I just wanted to help others and didn't study hard at home, so I was shut out." He felt aggrieved and a little angry. "Why are you happy to help someone?" Luz's who asked again. "When Avril came to me for help, I went there, but when I got home I couldn't get in." Gu Jin felt heartbroken when he first thought about this. There were several times when he wondered whether he picked it up or got it in person. However, if he looks like this and there is no blood relationship, then he will never believe that he is his biological child. Luz's who frowned slightly. "Avril asked you for help? Did she say anything?" "You don't even care about me." "Explain." "You didn't say anything, you just said that you bought too many things and couldn't carry them, so you asked me for help. What's wrong?" "It's okay," Luz's who said gloomily. He felt uncomfortable thinking about Avril Lavigne bullying Zhang Wanan and embarrassing Zhang Wanan. When did his little girl get someone else's turn to bully her? Gu Jinchu didn't think much and leaned over with a playful smile. "How about a place to live? Just go to the room you always come to stay in." Luz's who suddenly felt that that room was almost exclusive to Gu Jinchu. With a place to live, Gu Jinchu didn't have to worry about anything anymore. He followed the two people and lay down comfortably on the sofa to start enjoying the good time of the day. "Did you know that Avril is going back abroad?" Gu Jinchu asked suddenly. Luz's who nodded. He vaguely remembered what Avril Lavigne said today. "Then shall we have a meal with her?" Luz's who glanced at him and said nothing. Having had a very unhappy lunch today, he felt there was no need to make another unpleasant experience. "Are you going?" Gu Jinchu asked urgently. "It's not like I'm not coming back, you have to go by yourself," Luz's who said in a calm tone. "I go back." Luz's who was annoyed by him and started to chase him away. This move really worked. Gu Jinchu immediately gave up. He shook his head and said, "I won't speak anymore. I'll shut up." Luz's who snorted coldly, thinking that it was still true. Zhang Wanan may have been a little tired from the day, so she fell asleep on Luz's who's lap while watching the TV. Luz's who did not dare to move easily, and pointed to the small blanket on the sofa and motioned to Gu Jinchu to help get it. Gu Jinchu helped him take it over in a very helpless manner. After he covered Zhang Wanan, he asked silently, "Do you want to play a game?" Luz's who looked down at the sleeping person and shook his head. If he got up, he would definitely wake the little girl up. "Then can I play alone?" "It's too boring." Gu Jinchu frowned and said. "He is just lively and active, and letting him sit quietly all the time will kill him." Luz's who nodded and Gu Jinchu stood up and ran to the game room. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 326. Chapter 326. She is interested. Zhang Wanan didn't know how long he slept. Anyway, when he woke up, it was already dark outside, and the smell of rice filled the entire first floor. She opened her eyes drowsily and found Luz's who holding a book and reading it carefully, as if he hadn't noticed that she was awake. Maybe it's because the book is right above her face. She moved. Luz's who closed the book and looked down at her. Wake up, he said softly. Jongwanan nodded and sat up and stretched. Jongwanan felt comfortable, but Luzes who felt that the moment Jongwanan woke up, his legs felt like an electric shock, and the whole leg was numb. He didn't even know how many times his legs had been numb after being pressed, but fortunately, he had gotten used to it after many times. Clenched his teeth, stood up with the leg that was not numb, and stamped hard. At this moment, Luzes who only felt that it was so sour and refreshing. Jongwanan blinked at him with big eyes, and then couldn't help but chuckle. I'm sorry, my legs are numb again, it seems I have too many things in my mind, she said. Luzes who looked back at her, and she was actually smiling. There was nothing embarrassing about it, she was obviously very embarrassed. Tell me, what's on your mind, Luzes who asked this question childishly. An idea flashed across Jongwanan's mind, and she said, it's you. Because I'm pretending to be you, and you are my whole world, that's why you have a heavy brain. Luzes who nodded with satisfaction. Then sit down and I'll give you a massage, Jongwanan said with a smile. Since her legs were numb, she had to express her feelings, otherwise she would feel a little sorry. Luzes who sat down slowly. He wanted to see how the little girl massaged him. In fact, the numbness in my legs has become lighter. I'm a professional, Jongwanan clenched her fists confidently. Although Jongwanan said that he was a professional, the actual massage was like a soft hammer, with no strength at all. But Luzes who didn't expose her, he closed his eyes and enjoyed it, thinking that he could just massage her as much as he wanted, but there was nothing he could do about it. After dinner, the three children played in the game room for a while, and then moved to Luzes who's room. Luzes who was busy doing homework during the day, so he started doing homework as soon as he entered the room, which made Gu Jinchu and Jongwanan look helpless. You see, this is the world of good students, we are not the same kind of people, Gu Jinchu sighed helplessly. Jongwanan lay next to Luzes who and looked at him obediently without saying a word. Gu Jinchu suddenly felt that he was redundant no matter where he went, so he turned around silently and walked out of the room. Enan, go to my bag and get the math exercise book for me, I forgot to bring it over, Luzes who said while writing his homework with his head down. Jongwanan looked back at her school bag lying quietly on the bed, nodded and walked over. Luzes whose school bag is very clean, and the books are arranged neatly. You can see the math book at once, unlike her school bag, which is messy. When she took her math book out of her bag, she accidentally brought out a thin piece of paper. The piece of paper fell lightly to the ground. Jongwanan lowered her head and bent down to pick it up. That piece of paper was a piece of letter paper. It was folded in half and lying in the school bag. When Jongwanan picked it up, he only took a corner of it, and then shook the letter paper away. Jongwanan was not interested in reading what was on it, but when she was about to fold it and stuff it back again, her face suddenly changed and she became interested. Luzes who only heard the sound of swishing behind him, but he did not wait for the homework book. He thought Jongwanan had not been found, so he lowered his head and asked without looking back, "What's wrong, Enan? Can't you find her?" Jongwanan did not respond to him, but directly threw the homework book over. Gaikia monthly ticket, recommended ticket, 5-star praise, ball, save children. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 327. Chapter 327, fearing that the world will not be in chaos. Luzes who finally raised his head after being hit on the back by his homework. He turned back to pick up his homework and looked at Jongwanan again. I saw Jongwanan sitting on the bed with his head down and reading a piece of white paper in his hand. What are you looking at? Luzes who asked. You don't know what's in your bag? Jongwanan asked. Huh? Luzes who looked at Jongwanan in confusion. He squinted for a while, but in the end he couldn't remember what the white paper was. In his impression, There seemed to be no such piece of blank paper in his bag. Even if he has it, he won't fold it in half. He likes to lay things flat. Loses who stood up and walked over. Before he got close, he heard Zhang Wanan say, "Don't come over yet." Loses who was stunned and really stood there without moving anymore. What's wrong? He had a vague premonition about it. Zhang Wanan held her throat and cleared her throat, put the piece of paper in front of her eyes and read it seriously like a speech. "Dear Senior Lu, I am Zhou Ziona." Zhang Wanan did not read any more after reading this. She glanced sideways at Loses who to see his expression. Sure enough, Loses who was usually so calm, was a little panicked at this moment. "Who is Zhou Ziona?" Zhang Wanan asked. "Yes. Don't worry, we'll talk later. Let's listen to what she said first." Zhang Wanan interrupted him. Sure enough, the woman's heart was agitated. One second she asked Zhou Ziona who she was, but the next second she stopped letting him speak. Zhang Wanan interrupted Loses who and started reading again. "I see that your attitude towards me is lukewarm. I know you don't like me, but I like you. We have been dating since junior high school. I have a lot of emotional experience. I am confident that you will fall in love with me." Zhang Wanan suddenly fell silent after reading this. She looked at Loses who. "What kind of things do people like you?" Loses who was silent for a while and suddenly said seriously, "I don't allow you to say that you are a toy." "You still think I'm not mad to death, right?" Zhang Wanan asked through gritted teeth. She threw the letter on the bed. She couldn't read it anymore. "Come and read it yourself." Loses who finally dared to move, but instead of looking at the piece of paper, he moved over and hugged Zhang Wanan. "I won't look at it, but I will look at you." His tone was a bit like a naughty child. Zhang Wanan wanted to laugh. "But now is not the time. Look at what Zhou Ziona is going to do," Zhang Wanan said coldly. "I don't, I'll just look at you." It was still a child's playful tone. "Explain it," Zhang Wanan said. "Even if I'm a madman, I don't know how this thing got into my skull bag. I'll throw it away right now." Loses who said. Without even looking at it, he balled up the piece of paper and threw it into the trash can. Zhang Wanan only took a look and didn't stop him. "When did I get involved with you?" Zhang Wanan asked again. "At the new student welcome party," Loses who said with a guilty conscience. Zhang Wanan asked him when he came back that night if anyone had talked to him, but he said no, it's over now. Zhang Wanan gritted her teeth. She now wanted to slap Loses who in the face. What kind of monster is this guy, messing around with women everywhere? I ignored her. I even told her that I had a girlfriend. Really? Loses who was eager to clear himself. It was so difficult for him. When did this piece of paper appear in his bag? Zhang Wanan's eyes lit up when she heard Loses who's words. "Did you tell her that you have a girlfriend?" "Yes, I said it." He said it, more than once, but the woman didn't seem to believe it. "Okay, Loses who, if she still pesters you next time, tell me and I'll do it for her. Let's see who dares to compete with me for a man," Zhang Wanan said in a loud voice. Looks like he is worried that the world will not be in chaos. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 328. Chapter 328. My whole heart is with you. She has had enough of this kind of life, and she is going to come out to cut off those women's escape. Loses who looked at her with a look of helplessness on his face. "You must be more ladylike." Zhang Wanan glared at him. "Men are all being snatched away. Give me a lady and let me see." Loses who stopped talking. In fact, if you think about it from his perspective, if he were Zhang Wanan, he would not feel safe if he continued like this for a long time, and he would still have to strike out when necessary. "I'm going to sleep here tonight, but those women from the province have come here," Zhang Wanan said and fell down on the bed ruthlessly. Loses who glanced at her and thought that she just wanted to use this excuse to sleep here. "Forget it, let's leave it at that," don't expose her anymore, just don't make her angry. When I woke up early the next morning, Gu Jinshu was already gone. This was his plan last night. He said he would leave early and sneak back when his parents were awake in the morning to persuade his aunt at home to open the door for him. Asterisk. I was depressed for another 2 days, but after 2 days I returned to school and I was still a good man. Zhang Wanan walked beside Lu Zizhu menacingly that day when he returned to school. He was completely different from usual, like a different person. Lu Zizhu felt funny looking at her look, but he also felt a little sad and did not laugh in the end. She did this all for him, because he was in demand, so no matter how Lu Zizhu assured her, she would not feel safe. So Lu Zizhu tried his best to give her a sense of security. He didn't want her to live in panic every day. He reached out and grabbed Zhang Wanan's little hand and pulled her to his side. He said softly, "Anan, you don't have to be like this. I really don't care about others. My whole heart is with you. My whole heart is placed with you." Zhang Wanan suddenly felt very comfortable with these words. She raised her hand and actually put it on her heart. Her heart was beating. Lu Zizhu said that his heart was also placed with her, so it must be the hearts of both of them. Lu Zizhu looked at her silly behavior and patted her on the head, then said with a smile, "Silly." Zhang Wanan came back to her senses after being patted by him. She suddenly remembered that this was a school, but they were holding hands. Zhang Wanan quickly pulled her hand out of Lu Zizhu's hand, and she was so frightened that she almost jumped up. "Zhang Wanan, are you so brave?" "I'm not even afraid." Lu Zizhu looked at Zhang Wanan in amusement, who was standing there with his head lowered as if he had made a mistake. Obviously he looked quite impressive just now. "It affects the school spirit," Zhang Wanan whispered, and then she ran away like a gust of wind. Lu Zizhu watched her fleeing from behind with helplessness and heartache. It's calm in the school on this side, but on the other side. Tang Yu was standing in the middle of the cake shop and furious. When Lin 11 was secretly called from the flower shop by an employee, she found that all the employees in the shop were working timidly, while Tang Yu was sitting in the corner and looking at the endless traffic outside in a daze. If the employee hadn't told her something secretly, she might not have noticed anything just by looking at it. The employees didn't dare to take a breath before Lin 11 came, and they all breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Lin 11 coming. She walked over and sat across from Tang Yu and called. Tang Yu didn't hear it and still sat there blankly. Lin 11 stretched out her hand and knocked on the table. Tang Yu heard it this time, but she turned around with a gloomy face. She thought it was some unsighted employee, but she was stunned when she turned around and saw that it was Lin 11. "One time. Why are you here? Isn't the flower shop busy?" she asked with evasive eyes. "Well, it'll be fine if you walk away for a while. The work over there will be lighter," Lin 11 said. Tang Yu nodded. Lin Zio chatted for a while looking for some random topics and finally brought the topic to Tang Yu. Asking for monthly votes, recommendation votes, and 5-star praise. Beg on your knees. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 329. Chapter 329. I'm sick. Are you very tired recently? Lin 11 asked. Tang Yu looked up at her and smiled slightly. It's okay, she said. You lost your temper again. Lin 11 looked at her with sharp eyes. She said again. Tang Yu smiled helplessly and pressed his temples. Has someone complained to you again? Tang Yu also uses you. Losing your temper again? Has someone filed a complaint against you again? Tang Yu has been losing his temper a lot recently. I wonder if he is under too much pressure. Let's go out and relax, Lin 11 said to Tang Yu. How about that? You have to carry it alone when I leave. It's so tiring. When I was sick, weren't you the only one fighting it? Listen to me. Tang Yu smiled and shook his head helplessly, and said to Lin 11, Lin 11, I'm sick. Lin 11 felt as if her ears were ringing for a moment. She looked at Tang Yu nervously. What did you say? What's wrong with you? It's okay, I just like to lose my temper recently and can't control it. Is this an illness? She said with helplessness on her face at the end. Let's go. Lin 11 stood up and pulled her. Where to go? Tang Yu looked confused. Let me take you out for a walk, don't think blindly. As she said this, she pulled Tang Yu out of the cake shop. There are many employees in the store. Tell me the truth here. What's wrong with you? You've lost your temper frequently recently and the dark circles under your eyes have become severe. Did something happen to you? Lin 11 came to a secluded place. Ask her. Tang Yu sat on the bench and looked at Lin 11, who was standing in front of him with a serious face, and smiled. Why are you laughing? Lin 11 couldn't help but frown. It's okay, just sit down, she said. Lin 11 sat next to her. How about, you should go out for a walk, you must be too tired recently. How can you not be sick? Let's talk about it later. Don't wait for a while, just leave as soon as possible. Aren't you worried about me looking after the store? That's not the case, it's just that you'll be very tired by yourself. Lin 11 sighed helplessly. Don't think about me, I won't be tired. If it doesn't work, I can ask Xiaoqiao to help me. Xiaoqiao is a very serious girl in the store, and Lin 11 likes her very much. After a while, Tang Yu still said that. Don't lose your temper all the time in the future. It's not good for your health. Look at how scared the children were when I went there just now. They almost cast a shadow on you. Yes, I will be nicer to them in the future, Tang Yu said with a smile. That's right, as I said before, go out for a walk early and relax, and go back to sleep now. Lin 11 felt distressed when she saw Tang Yu's big dark circles under his eyes. Tang Yu did not refuse this time, but just nodded. The two of them sat on the bench and blew in the wind for a while before they stood up and were ready to leave. Let's take a taxi back later if you're not feeling well, don't drive by yourself, Lin 11 said. Tang Yu nodded and walked to the roadside to wait for the bus. Go back to sleep and come to my house for dinner at night. If not, just go to my house to sleep and don't go back. Forget it, I'll go back to sleep and come to your place at night. All right, have a good rest. Tang Yu nodded, stopped a car and drove away. Lin 11 watched her get into the car and then turned around and walked into the store. She had to find a way to let Tang Yu rest for a while. Just losing his temper like this and having two dark circles under his eyes every day was not enough. She has lost her temper 3 times in the past few months, and the dark circles under her eyes are getting worse and worse. She will not be able to hold on for a long time. Lin 11 thought that something must have happened to Tang Yu, or that she was overtired by the work in the store. Asterisk the other side. Zhang Wanan was lying on the table doing nothing. There was a bag of potato chips next to her, which she had already eaten. Zhang Wanan, there's someone looking for you outside, the person sitting at the door suddenly shouted. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 330. Chapter 330, Sister, can you not make it difficult for me? Zhang Wanan, there's someone looking for you outside, the person sitting at the door suddenly shouted. She lazily raised her eyelids, then stood up, stretched and walked slowly out. Who is it? Zhang Wanan glanced at the door when he was about to reach it and saw no one at the door. I don't know her, said the classmate who called her. Male or female? Female. Female. Zhang Wanan thought for a while, and she thought it was Luz's who came to find her. But who will the woman be? Avril has already gone abroad with her parents. She was confused when a head from outside came in, looked at her with a smile and said, Sister, I'm looking for you. Zhang Wanan looked at it and saw a completely unfamiliar face. She had never seen it before. She went out and looked at the girl for a while. She seemed to be from the high school. Who are you? Zhang Wanan asked. Well, I'm doing something for someone, the girl said and took out a pink envelope in her hand. Zhang Wanan did not turn his attention to the pink envelope, but asked doubtfully, do you know me? I didn't know him at first, but this person told me, so I got to know him. She pointed to the pink envelope. What? Zhang Wanan asked. Actually, what can she see? She had seen a lot of losers who. How obvious, she said and turned the pink envelope over to show her. The two words love letter were extremely dazzling. Zhang Wanan looked at it and nodded. Sorry to trouble you, you can go back. Don't you want it? Zhang Wanan shook his head and entered the classroom. The girl wanted to call her again, but the school bell rang on time. Zhang Wanan felt baffled after entering the classroom. Someone actually sent her a love letter? She thought only losers who could like her. Now it seems that her charm is quite great, at least someone sent her love letters, instead of seeing a steady stream of people sending love letters to losers who every day. It's a pity to confiscate it, but I don't know what losers whose reaction would be if he saw the pink envelope. Would it be the same as her reaction? Or is it bigger than her reaction? I thought it would be okay if I refused, but it turned out that the girl who had been rejected by the help of the love letter did not give up. When she was out of school in the afternoon, she stopped Zhang Yanan. Sister, just accept it for a while. If you accept it for a while, you won't suffer any loss, just accept it, she said, chasing after Zhang Wanan. Zhang Wanan replied coldly, I won't accept it. The person who sent you the love letter really likes you, and he will be sad if you don't accept it. What does it matter to me? I don't know him. If he is sad, let him be sad, but if he accepts that person and wants to be happy, then the sad person will be losers who. You'll get to know each other once you accept it. Don't you get to know each other gradually, the girl persuaded. Zhang Wanan finally stopped when she got downstairs. The girl thought she had been told and was going to take it away, but who knew that Zhang Wanan said, please help me take it away. After saying that, she lifted her legs and walked away again. The girl was dumbfounded, thinking that she was giving it as a gift. How could she accept it? Besides, this isn't for her, so what's the use of accepting it? Sister, just take it back, don't make it difficult for me. Sister, can you please stop making things difficult for me? Zhang Wanan interrupted her and said helplessly. What does it mean to embarrass her? The one who is clearly embarrassed is Zhang Wanan herself. After speaking, Zhang Wanan searched around the playground with her eyes. From a distance, she saw losers who still standing under the tree, waiting for her. There was a slight wind, and the leaves above losers whose head were slightly blown, and his clothes were also fluttering slightly. Zhang Wanan suddenly felt that the scene was beautiful, so beautiful that she felt a little moved. End of this chapter.